Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past, wrote George Orwell in his dystopian masterpiece, 1984. This chilling observation underscores a fundamental truth. History is not merely a collection of dusty tales, but a living, breathing force that shapes our present and dictates our future. When we allow history to be distorted, manipulated, or erased entirely, we surrender our understanding of the world and relinquish our ability to defend the very principles that underpin a free and just society. The consequences of such historical amnesia are far-reaching. When we forget or misinterpret the past, we lose the context that informs our current decisions and policies. The Second Amendment, enshrined in the United States Constitution, guarantees the right of individuals to keep and bear arms. The founders were clear on the reason for the Second Amendment. It was to ensure the people retained the ability to fight off a tyrannical government. This right, however, is more than just a constitutional provision. It's a testament to the historical struggle against tyranny and the recognition that a well-armed citizenry is the ultimate safeguard against government overreach. Today, this fundamental right is under attack like never before. The debate over gun control has intensified, with passionate arguments on both sides. Those who seek to dismantle the Second Amendment understand that erasing history is a crucial step in their agenda. By rewriting or omitting key historical events, they aim to weaken the foundation upon which this right stands. By obscuring the historical context surrounding the Second Amendment, they aim to disarm the American people, both literally and figuratively. This tactic is not new. It has been employed by those in power throughout history to control, subjugate, and enslave populations. The dangers of historical amnesia are not theoretical. They are real and present. When we neglect our history, we risk losing the hard-earned freedoms that define our society. When we forget the lessons of the past, we are condemned to repeat them. This is a lesson that history has taught us time and again. This is particularly true when it comes to the right to bear arms, a right that has been repeatedly targeted throughout history by those who seek to consolidate power and control populations. Dictators and authoritarian regimes have often disarmed their citizens to prevent resistance. From the battlefields of the American Revolution to the streets of modern America, the right to bear arms has been instrumental in safeguarding liberty. It has empowered individuals to stand up against oppression and defend their freedoms. To truly understand and defend this right, we must delve into the annals of history and confront the uncomfortable truths that some would rather have us forget. Only by doing so can we ensure that the lessons of the past continue to guide us in the present and future. The erasure of history is not a passive act of forgetting. It is a deliberate and insidious process by which powerful forces attempt to reshape our understanding of the past to serve their present-day agendas and retain their power. This manipulation can take many forms, from the subtle omission of inconvenient facts to the outright destruction of historical records and monuments. The goal, however, remains the same: to control the narrative and silence dissenting voices. When history is erased, we lose our collective memory and our ability to learn from the mistakes of the past. This creates a dangerous void that can be easily filled with misinformation and propaganda. Without a firm grounding in historical truth, we become susceptible to manipulation and vulnerable to the whims of those who seek to exploit our ignorance for their own gain. The consequences of historical erasure are far-reaching and devastating. It leads to a lack of awareness about past injustices, which allows for the perpetuation of systemic inequalities. Without a clear understanding of how we arrived at our present circumstances, we are ill-equipped to address the root causes of societal problems and enact meaningful change. Moreover, erasing history erodes accountability. When the misdeeds of the powerful are swept under the rug, they are free to repeat their transgressions without fear of consequence. This creates a culture of impunity that undermines the very foundations of a just and equitable society. One of the most glaring examples of how erasing history serves to undermine liberty is the systemic disarmament of Black Americans throughout history. This disarmament was not just a series of isolated incidents, but a coordinated effort to strip an entire community of its rights and means of self-defense. This campaign, often spearheaded by those who claim to champion equality and justice, has had a devastating impact on Black communities and serves as a stark reminder of how seemingly disparate issues are deeply intertwined. The disarmament was a tool used to enforce racial hierarchies and maintain social control. Following the Civil War, Southern states, still deeply entrenched in racist ideology, enacted Black codes, laws designed to restrict the freedoms of newly freed Black Americans. These laws were a direct response to the newfound freedom of Black individuals and aimed to curtail their rights in every possible way. One of the primary targets of these codes was the right to bear arms. By denying Black Americans the ability to own firearms, these laws left them defenseless against racial violence and oppression. Through poll taxes, exorbitant fees, and outright bans, Black Americans were systematically disarmed, leaving them vulnerable to violence and intimidation at the hands of white supremacists. These measures were designed to ensure that Black people could not protect themselves or their families. This deliberate disarmament was not a coincidence. It was a calculated strategy to maintain white supremacy and control over the Black population. By keeping Black Americans unarmed, white supremacists could easily enforce their will and suppress any resistance. By stripping Black Americans of their right to self-defense, Southern Democrats aimed to keep them economically and socially subservient. This disarmament was a key component of a broader strategy to maintain racial inequality and prevent Black communities from achieving true freedom. The Ku Klux Klan, born out of this atmosphere of racial terror, further terrorized Black communities, often targeting those who dared to arm themselves in self-defense. The Klan's actions were a direct extension of the systemic disarmament policies of the Democrats, aiming to instill fear and maintain control. The erasure of this history is not merely an academic concern. It has very real consequences for the present day. Understanding this history is crucial for recognizing the ongoing struggles for racial justice and the importance of protecting the rights of all communities. By obscuring the historical context of gun control measures, we risk repeating the mistakes of the past and perpetuating the very systems of oppression we claim to oppose. It is essential to acknowledge and learn from this history to ensure a more just and equitable future for all. The history of gun control in America is inextricably linked to the history of racial discrimination. From the earliest days of the nation, laws were crafted to keep firearms out of the hands of marginalized communities, particularly Black Americans. And it's a history that the American left would rather we forget, particularly the role of the Democratic Party. This party, which now positions itself as a champion of civil rights, has a complex and often troubling past. The same party that once championed slavery and fought tooth and nail against the abolition of this horrific institution, later pivoted to become the architects of Jim Crow. This era saw the implementation of laws designed to enforce racial segregation and disenfranchise Black citizens. This transformation, however, was more about maintaining power than embracing equality. The Democratic Party's shift was a strategic move to adapt to the changing political landscape while still holding on to their power and influence. By disarming Black Americans and enacting segregationist policies, Democrats in the South sought to retain control over the newly emancipated Black population. These measures were not just about maintaining order, but about suppressing any potential threats to their dominance. They understood that an armed and empowered Black community posed a direct threat to their grip on power. The fear of an uprising or resistance was a driving force behind these oppressive laws. This historical reality stands in stark contrast to the modern-day image the Democratic Party attempts to project. Today, they present themselves as the defenders of civil rights and social justice while still pushing gun control measures. They claim to be the party of civil rights and equality, yet their history tells a different story. The narrative they promote often glosses over the darker chapters of their past. By erasing this uncomfortable past, they can whitewash their record and deflect from the uncomfortable parallels between their past actions and their present-day gun control agenda. This selective memory serves to reshape their identity in the public eye. The Democrats' shift from supporting slavery to implementing Jim Crow is a stark reminder that political parties are not monolithic entities driven by unwavering principles, but rather fluid organizations that adapt to the prevailing political winds. This adaptability is often driven by the need to secure votes and maintain power. Understanding this dynamic is crucial to analyzing their current stance on gun control. The policies they advocate for today must be viewed through the lens of their historical actions and motivations. The policies they currently push often have an adverse effect on the same communities they have historically oppressed. Their history demonstrates a willingness to exploit fear and prejudice to achieve their political goals, even if it means disarming and disempowering the very communities they claim to champion. This pattern of behavior raises important questions about their true intentions and the potential impact of their policies on marginalized groups. In recent times, there have been numerous instances of erasing and rewriting history. For example, President Joe Biden has stated that you could not own a cannon when the founders wrote the Second Amendment. This is a misinterpretation of historical facts. There are plenty of examples of cannons being owned by private individuals. In the War of 1812, privateers captured over 1,000 British ships, while operating private ships loaded with privately owned cannons. Additionally, there has been a significant misinterpretation of the term well-regulated by the left, which originally meant well-equipped, well-functioning, and well-trained, rather than regulated by the government. These distortions of history pose a serious threat to our understanding and preservation of the Second Amendment rights. By altering the context and meaning of historical documents, contemporary leaders can shape public perception and policy in ways that may undermine fundamental freedoms. It's crucial to recognize these attempts at historical revisionism for what they are: efforts to control the narrative and, by extension, the power dynamics within society. As we navigate these complex issues, we must remain vigilant and question the motivations behind such reinterpretations. Only by doing so can we protect the integrity of our history and ensure that the lessons of the past are not lost to the manipulations of the present. Understanding the true intent of the Second Amendment and the historical context in which it was written is essential to preserving the rights it guarantees. We must hold fast to the original meanings and intentions of our founding documents, lest we allow them to be twisted and used against us. In the end, the preservation of our liberties depends on a clear and accurate understanding of our history. It's up to each of us to seek out the truth and defend it against those who would seek to rewrite it for their own ends. Let us remember that the strength of our nation lies not just in its laws, but in the vigilance of its people to uphold them in their true form. Only by staying informed and engaged can we hope to maintain the freedoms that define us as a nation. Thank you for watching. And remember to always question, learn, and stand up for the truth. Keep your head down and your powder dry.